My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 29 years old, and the strange thing about heartbreak is that sometimes it doesn't arrive with screaming or betrayal in plain sight. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in laughter. Sometimes it sounds like the person you love talking about you like you're a burden, while their friends giggle over wine glasses downstairs. And sometimes, the moment your relationship truly ends, your partner doesn't even realize it yet. It happened at a birthday party on a Saturday night. Marcus and I had been together for a year and a half. We'd lived together for 8 months in a downtown apartment he loved the second he saw it. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows. Too expensive for him alone, but perfect once I agreed to handle most of the bills. His credit was a disaster when we applied. Defaulted student loans. Maxed out credit cards. Collections. The landlord rejected him immediately. I still remember Marcus sitting in the car afterward, staring out the windshield with embarrassment burning behind his eyes. "I really wanted that place," he'd whispered. I loved him then, enough that I made excuses for everything. So, I offered a solution. The lease would stay in his name only, so he could rebuild his credit history. I would pay the security deposit, first month's rent, most of the utilities, groceries, internet, furniture, nearly everything. At the time, it felt romantic. Like teamwork. Like sacrifice for someone you plan to marry someday. Marcus worked part-time at a dental office, making maybe $1,400 a month. I worked as a systems analyst, making around $78,000 a year. The imbalance never bothered me because I believed we were building a future together. Or, at least, I thought we were. Tessa's birthday party changed everything. The apartment was crowded and overheated, music vibrating through the walls, while groups of people shouted over each other with drinks in their hands. Marcus looked incredible that night. Black shirt, silver chain, that effortless smile that used to make me feel lucky. Funny how quickly love can distort memory after humiliation enters the room. Around midnight, I went upstairs to use the bathroom. On my way back down, I heard Marcus's voice drifting from the living room. At first, I smiled automatically. Then I stopped walking. "I swear to God," Marcus groaned dramatically. "Natalie is so boring lately." Laughter exploded around him. Tessa said, "Then why are you still with her?" And Marcus answered without hesitation. "Honestly, she's lucky I even stay." Something cold moved through my chest. Janine laughed loudly. "Stop!" "No, seriously," Marcus continued. "She's stable and all that, but there's no excitement anymore. No spontaneity. She plans everything. Thinks staying home cooking dinner is quality time." Another round of laughter. Then came the sentence I still hear sometimes when I can't sleep. Between her boring personality and the fact she's basically maintenance-level attractive, I could definitely do better. My stomach dropped. "But," he added casually, "the rent setup is amazing, and she never complains when I buy stuff, so whatever." They all laughed again. Not awkward laughter.
Agreement. Approval.
The kind of laughter people use when they believe someone's cruelty is justified. I stood frozen in the hallway for maybe 10 seconds, but it felt longer. And in those 10 seconds, dozens of little memories suddenly rearranged themselves into something ugly. The constant phone turning whenever I walked near him. Late shifts that didn't quite make sense. The boredom in his eyes whenever I talked. The way affection had started feeling performative. I realized something horrifying. This wasn't a rough patch. This was who he really was when I wasn't supposed to hear him. I walked into the living room before I could lose my nerve. Marcus looked up immediately. For one split second, panic flashed across his face. Then the smile came back. "Hey babe," he said quickly. "We were just talking about you." "Yeah," I replied softly. "I figured." Nobody spoke. The room suddenly felt too warm. Marcus stood up halfway. "You okay?" I smiled. Not fake, not angry. Just finished. "I'm gonna head out," I said calmly. Not feeling great. His eyes narrowed slightly, trying to read me. "You want me to come with you?" "No," I grabbed my purse. Stay, enjoy the party. Then I leaned down and kissed his forehead gently. The entire room went silent. I don't think any of them understood yet that they were watching a relationship die in real time. I left. The moment I got into my car, my hands started shaking so badly I couldn't put the key in the ignition. I just sat there, staring ahead, while tears blurred the parking garage lights. Humiliation feels physical sometimes. Like your ribs are collapsing inward. I called my best friend, Devin. Can I stay with you for a few days? He paused instantly. What happened? I'll explain later. Yeah, he said immediately. Come over. Before driving there, I made another call. An emergency moving company. I need a move completed within 48 hours. Sunday evening availability. $850. I booked it without hesitation. Then I drove home. Marcus didn't return until almost 2 in the morning. By then, I had already started separating the apartment into piles. Mine. His. Shared but purchased by me. I photographed everything carefully for documentation. When he walked through the door, he looked slightly drunk but relaxed. Hey, babe, he said casually while kicking off his shoes. I looked up from folding clothes. Hey. For a second, I wondered if guilt would appear on his face. It didn't. He walked past me, brushed his hand absent-mindedly across my shoulder, and went to bed like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't heard him describe me as financially useful and barely attractive. I didn't sleep at all that night. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, wondering how long he'd secretly looked down on me. By Sunday evening, the movers arrived. 3 men in work boots carried my life out, piece by piece. The couch. The television. My desk. Kitchen appliances. Bookshelves.
Artwork.
Even the mattress frame. Everything I paid for disappeared from that apartment within 90 minutes. I left all his belongings untouched. I also handled the practical things first. Utilities in my name were scheduled for shutoff at the end of the month. Internet canceled. Automatic rent payment terminated. Then I contacted the landlord professionally. I'm moving out, I explained. The lease is solely under Marcus Reed's name. Any future rent obligations belong to him. The landlord sounded surprised. Understood. I returned my building key to the office with written documentation confirming my departure. Rent was due in 1 week. Marcus had no idea yet. Before leaving, I placed a single printed note on the kitchen counter. Marcus, I heard your conversation with Tessa and Janine. All of it. You made your feelings very clear, so I'm making this easy for both of us. I moved out. Utilities shut off at the end of the month. Details are in your email. Rent is due on the 1st. Lease is in your name, so that responsibility belongs to you now. Everything left here is yours. I only took what belonged to me. I genuinely hope you find someone exciting enough for you someday. Natalie. I placed my key beside the note, looked around the nearly empty apartment one final time, and walked away without crying. That part came later. At Devin's apartment, I turned my phone off completely, and for the first time in months, the silence felt peaceful. When I turned my phone back on Monday morning, it felt like opening a door to a storm. 73 text messages. 28 missed calls. All from Marcus. The first message had come Sunday night at 10:45. Where are you? Then another. Why does the apartment look like this? Then, Natalie, answer your phone. Then, are you serious right now? By midnight, the panic had turned defensive. Okay, I read your note. You're overreacting. Then came the excuse. It was just guy talk. Then the begging. Please don't do this. I love you. By morning, the truth came out. You have to help me with rent. You can't just stop paying. This is my apartment. That last sentence made me laugh once. Not because it was funny. Because it was finally honest. His apartment. His lease. His responsibility. I didn't respond. Instead, I confirmed with my bank that the automatic rent payment had been stopped. Then I confirmed the utility shutoffs. Everything was already processed. At 9 a.m., I blocked his number. By noon, the calls started coming from other people. First, Tessa. "Natalie," she snapped the second I answered. "Marcus is freaking out. You need to call him." "No, I really don't." "Don't be childish. Everyone vents to friends." Everyone tells their friends their partner is lucky to have them? That she's maintenance level attractive, but useful for rent? Silence. Then she said, softer, "He didn't mean it like that." "Cool story. Don't call me again." I hung up and blocked her too. The next day, Marcus's mother called. Candace Reed had always treated me politely, but there was a coldness under it. Like, she appreciated what I did for Marcus without ever fully appreciating me. "Natalie," she said sharply, "we need to discuss what you've done to my son." "There's nothing to discuss. You abandoned him with an apartment he can't afford." "I moved out of an apartment I wasn't legally tied to." "You know he can't pay that rent." "Then he shouldn't have built his life around insulting the person paying it." She inhaled hard. "It was private conversation." "It wasn't private enough. I heard every word." "He made a mistake." "No, he revealed a pattern." Candace's voice trembled with anger. "You're ruining his life." "No," I said. "He gambled his comfort on my silence. That's different." I hung up before she could answer. Thursday, Marcus emailed me from his work account. The subject line was simply, "Please." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. He wrote that he didn't mean any of it, that he had been stressed, that he was showing off, that I was the best thing in his life, that he loved me. Then, at the bottom, came the real reason for the email. "Natalie, I can't afford this apartment alone. Rent is $1,850, and I only make $1,400 a month. I have $340 in my account. Rent is due in 5 days. Please come back, or at least cover this month. I'll pay you back, I swear." There it was. Love, apology, panic, all leading back to money. I forwarded the email to Devin for documentation and didn't respond. Friday afternoon, Devin's phone rang while we were eating takeout at his kitchen counter. He looked at the screen and frowned. "It's Janine." "Put it on speaker," I said. He answered. Janine didn't even greet him properly. "Look, Marcus messed up, but Natalie is being ridiculous. She's basically making him homeless over something he said in private that she wasn't supposed to hear." I leaned toward the phone. "So it's okay to humiliate your partner as long as they don't find out?" There was a pause. "Natalie?" "Yes?" "He was drinking and venting. You know how guys are." "No," I said. "I know how users are." She sighed dramatically. "He exaggerated. He said I was boring and unattractive. He said he could do better, but stayed because I paid for everything." That sounds specific. "He didn't think you'd actually leave." That's the problem. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Janine said, "Are you really going to let him get evicted?" "I'm not letting him do anything. He signed the lease. He's an adult." "This is cruel." "No, cruel is laughing while your partner becomes the joke." I ended the call myself. Saturday brought a LinkedIn message from Tessa. LinkedIn. That was how desperate the situation had become. "Natalie, Marcus has nowhere to go. His mom can't take him in because she and her husband are in a 1-bedroom. He's applying for cheaper places but has no deposit. At least pay 1 more month so he has time." I deleted it. Sunday night, Marcus showed up at Devin's building. He buzzed the apartment again and again until Devin finally answered through the intercom. "Please," Marcus cried. "I just need to talk to her." I stood behind Devin, arms folded, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. His voice sounded broken. For one dangerous second, I remembered the Marcus from the beginning. The one who brought me coffee when I worked late. The one who cried when his credit rejection came through. The one who told me no one had ever believed in him like I did. Then I remembered the laughter. Maintenance level attractive. Rent situation is amazing. Devin looked at me. I shook my head. She doesn't want to talk, Devin said. Marcus stayed outside for 20 minutes before finally leaving. Monday was rent day. A new number texted me. I had to borrow $2,000 from my mom for rent plus overdraft fees. Now, I can't afford food or gas, and the utilities are getting shut off. This is all your fault. I stared at the message. This time, I replied once. You made it clear how you felt about me. I removed myself from that situation. The lease being in your name was your choice. I fulfilled my side while we were together. We are not together anymore. Then I blocked that number too. For 2 weeks, the noise continued. Different numbers. Messages through social media. Mutual friends checking in. People asking whether I could have been kinder. Kinder. That word followed me around like a stain. Was it kind to stay with someone who saw me as a wallet? Was it kind to keep funding a life where I was mocked behind closed doors? Was it kind to teach Marcus there were no consequences for contempt? Devin kept telling me I was doing the right thing. Still, some nights, guilt crawled into bed beside me. I imagined Marcus sitting in that empty apartment with no television, no couch, no soft place to land. Then I reminded myself he had mistaken my love for weakness, and I had mistaken his dependence for devotion. Eventually, Devin heard from someone that Marcus had moved back in with his mother after Candace threatened to leave her husband when he initially refused. The apartment was gone. The lifestyle was gone. And so was I. Janine posted something vague online about cold women who abandon men over one mistake. I didn't respond. A few mutual friends reached out privately, saying they supported me completely. One even admitted Marcus had always seemed too comfortable spending money he didn't earn. That hurt in a new way. Because sometimes people notice what you're too in love to see. Meanwhile, I found a one-bedroom apartment for $1,250 a month. Smaller. Quieter. Mine. The first night I signed the paperwork, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I missed Marcus. Because I had spent so long making space for someone who only valued what I provided. And now, for the first time in almost 2 years, my life belonged entirely to me. Marcus once said he was lucky to stay with me. He was wrong. Luck had nothing to do with it. He had access to my patience, my money, my loyalty, and my forgiveness. And he confused access with ownership. That was his first real mistake. 5 weeks after I left, things stopped being sad and started becoming disturbing. It began with a phone call from the apartment building manager. "Hi, Natalie," Larry said carefully. "We've got a situation with Marcus." I leaned back in my desk chair at work and closed my eyes briefly. What kind of situation? His rent check bounced. Eviction proceedings are starting. I waited. Larry continued awkwardly. "He listed you as an emergency contact. I was hoping maybe you could help him work something out." I almost laughed. Not at Larry. At the absurdity of how everyone still expected me to save Marcus from consequences he created himself. "I'm not on the lease," I said calmly. "Never was. I paid voluntarily while we were together. We're not together anymore." He mentioned you promised to help him transition for a few months. That actually did make me laugh. No, I absolutely did not.
Silence.
Then Larry sighed softly. Understood. I figured I should check. After hanging up, I sat staring at my computer screen while anger slowly curled through me again. Marcus was lying now. Not just to friends. Not just to family. To landlords. To anyone who might pressure me into rescuing him. The next escalation came 2 days later. My boss called me into his office. I remember the strange tightness in my stomach walking down the hallway. That instinctive fear people feel when authority figures say, "Can we talk for a minute?" He closed the office door behind me. I got an unusual phone call this morning. Immediately, I knew. Marcus's mother? He raised an eyebrow. Actually, yes. Of course. What did she say? That you abandoned her son, financially and emotionally, left him homeless, and that the stress from the breakup was affecting your work performance. I stared at him. Then I explained everything. The party. The conversation. The apartment arrangement. The move out. The harassment afterward. My boss listened quietly the entire time. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. So basically, he said, your ex-boyfriend's mother tried to damage your professional reputation because you stopped financially supporting him after he insulted you. When you put it that way, it sounds insane. Because it is insane. Relief hit me so hard I nearly laughed. He shook his head slowly. Document everything, seriously. If this keeps escalating, you may want legal protection. That sentence stayed with me longer than I expected.
Legal protection.
Because suddenly, this wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was entitlement turning aggressive. That weekend, things got worse. Devin had gone out with Zoe for dinner when his girlfriend called me, sounding panicked. Natalie, Marcus is here. My chest tightened instantly. With who? His mom and Janine. I stood up so fast, my chair nearly fell backward. What are they doing? They're downstairs banging on the security door demanding your apartment number. I felt ice spread through my arms. For the first time since leaving, I was genuinely scared. Not because I thought Marcus would hurt me physically, but because I realized he still believed access to me was something he deserved. Call building security, I said immediately. By the time Devin got home, security had already escorted them out. According to Zoe, Marcus had been crying in the lobby, saying I ruined his life and refusing to leave until he spoke to me. Candace apparently accused the security guard of protecting emotional abuse.
Emotional abuse.
That phrase echoed in my mind all night. Interesting how quickly people redefine accountability when consequences become uncomfortable. The next morning, Marcus emailed my work account again. Longer this time. Angrier. Natalie, I know you hate me, but what you're doing is cruel. I borrowed $2,000 from my mom and can't pay her back. Utilities cost almost $200 to reconnect. I'm working extra shifts and still barely eating. My credit is destroyed now because of the bounced rent check. I'm getting evicted next week. I had to sell my TV. My mom barely speaks to me anymore because she's tired of helping. Janine stopped talking to me after I borrowed money from her too. All because you decided to punish me over something I didn't even mean. I was drunk and trying to impress people. You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. I read the email 3 times. Not because it hurt. Because something finally became crystal clear. Marcus still believed this story was about one drunken conversation. Not about disrespect. Not about using me financially while secretly looking down on me. Not about humiliation. To him, the real crime was that I stopped protecting him from the collapse waiting underneath his lifestyle. I forwarded the email into a folder labeled Documentation. Then I deleted it. No response. No argument. Nothing left to explain. That Friday, Devin ran into Tessa at a coffee shop. Apparently, she approached him immediately. Is Natalie with you? Devin told me later he crossed his arms and said, Why? She needs to know Marcus is falling apart. Devin shrugged. Sounds like a Marcus problem. Tessa got frustrated. You don't understand. He's losing everything. No, Devin replied. You don't understand. According to him, the entire cafe got quiet after that. Tessa tried again. He made one mistake. Devin snapped. One mistake? He publicly humiliated the woman funding his life, called her boring, said she was lucky he stayed, said he only tolerated the relationship because she paid for everything. Tessa apparently looked uncomfortable for the first time. She didn't think he actually meant. No, Devin interrupted. The problem is, none of you thought Natalie would leave. That part hit me hard when he told me later. Because it was true. Marcus wasn't shocked by consequences. He was shocked that consequences applied to him. 2 days later, another new number texted me. I almost deleted it automatically before reading. It was Marcus. I have to move out by the end of the month. I'm moving 2 hours away to live with my aunt. I'm losing my job, my apartment, my friends, everything because you decided to be petty. I made a mistake, but this punishment doesn't fit the crime. You destroyed me. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied one final time. You didn't make a mistake, Marcus. You showed me who you are, and I believed you. Everything happening now is the result of building your life around someone you didn't respect. That isn't my fault. It's yours. Then I blocked that number too. The next message came from Candace through Facebook. Natalie, my son made a stupid mistake, but the way you handled this is disgusting. You knew he couldn't survive financially without you. He's depressed, barely sleeping, crying constantly, all because you couldn't forgive one bad moment. You're just another woman who throws men away the second they stop being perfect. I blocked her immediately. Then I sat in silence for a while. Because that was the part everyone kept misunderstanding. I didn't leave Marcus because he wasn't perfect. I left because he wasn't kind. There's a difference. Perfection is impossible. Respect is not. Around that time, my new apartment started finally feeling like home. I bought plants. Started cooking again. Started sleeping through the night without waking up anxious. The strangest part was realizing how peaceful life becomes once you stop carrying someone else financially and emotionally at the same time. I started saving money effortlessly. Started going to the gym regularly with Devin. Started laughing again without forcing it. Meanwhile, Marcus kept collapsing under the weight of a life he'd never actually supported himself. And still, part of me mourned him. Not the real Marcus. The version I thought existed. The man who once looked at me like I mattered more than what I could provide. But grief gets easier once illusion dies. And by then, the illusion was completely gone. 8 weeks after I walked out of that apartment, the story finally started ending. Not dramatically. Not with revenge. Just slowly. Like a wound sealing itself shut. I found out Marcus had officially moved away through Facebook, of all places. Tessa posted photos from a goodbye dinner at some trendy restaurant downtown. Marcus sat at the center of the table, trying to smile, though even through pictures, he looked exhausted. The caption read, "Going to miss you. New city, new adventures. Sometimes life forces changes we don't expect. Wishing you the best." Most comments were supportive. Then one stood out. "Hope the new place is cheaper, LOL." Another followed. Honestly, Natalie dodged a bullet. Tessa quickly replied, "Not the time." But the comment stayed there. I closed the app without reacting. For some reason, seeing strangers recognize the truth felt more validating than all the arguments ever had. The next surprise came from Janine. Devin ran into her at a grocery store parking lot one evening. When he told me later, he looked half amused and half annoyed. "She asked about you immediately." "Of course she did. She wanted me to tell you something." "I folded laundry while listening." "What?" Devin leaned against the kitchen counter. She said, "She finally understands." That made me stop moving. Understands what? What Marcus is really like. Apparently after I left, Marcus borrowed $300 from Janine, promising to repay her within 2 weeks. Then another $150. Then he moved away without paying back any of it. When she confronted him, he reportedly laughed and told her she was being dramatic because friends help each other without expecting money back. The irony was so sharp, it almost felt scripted. Devin said Janine looked embarrassed while admitting it. "She told me," he continued, "I guess Natalie wasn't exaggerating. He kind of uses people." I sat quietly for a moment after hearing that. Not because I felt victorious. Because sometimes the most painful part of betrayal is realizing the disrespect was never unique to you. It was simply part of who they are. By then, my own life barely resembled the one I had with Marcus. My new apartment felt warm now. Safe. I painted the walls soft cream colors and bought furniture slowly instead of rushing to impress someone else. I started cooking elaborate meals just because I enjoyed it. Thursday nights became basketball nights with Devin and his friends. Peaceful routines. Boring, maybe. At least, according to Marcus. But I'd learned something important. Peace is underrated by people addicted to chaos. Work was going well too. I even got a small raise, which made Devin joke that leaving toxic men was apparently good for career development. One Friday night, Zoe looked at me across dinner and smiled softly. "You seem lighter." I knew exactly what she meant. When you spend long enough being emotionally drained, freedom feels physical once it arrives. I smiled back. I think I forgot relationships aren't supposed to feel exhausting all the time. That night stayed with me. Because for months, I had mistaken stress for commitment.
Sacrifice for love.
Financial support for partnership. I carried Marcus so completely that I stopped noticing he never carried me back. 3 days later, I got one final message.
Unknown number.
Area code from 2 hours away. I almost deleted it automatically. Then I opened it. "Hey Natalie, I know you probably never want to hear from me again, but I wanted to say something before I let this go. I've had a lot of time to think since moving. And I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. What I said at that party was cruel. Not because you overheard it, because I meant it enough to say it out loud. I think I was trying to impress Tessa and Janine by acting like I was too good for the relationship, when really, I was ashamed of how dependent I'd become on you. Not just financially, emotionally too. And instead of dealing with that insecurity like an adult, I put you down to feel more in control. That wasn't fair to you. You loved me sincerely, and I treated that love like something guaranteed. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know I finally understand why you left. And I'm sorry. I read it several times. The old version of me would have cried reading those words. Would have treated them like a lifeline. Proof the relationship mattered. Proof he finally saw me. But the strange thing about healing is that eventually closure stops being something you beg other people to give you. You create it yourself. Did I believe Marcus meant the apology? Honestly, yes. For the first time since all this started, his message didn't sound manipulative. It sounded tired. Self-aware.
Human.
But understanding the damage doesn't erase the damage. Apologies matter. They should happen. But they don't reverse humiliation. They don't rebuild trust. And they don't obligate forgiveness. I never answered him. Not out of anger. There just wasn't anything left to say anymore. I archived the message and moved on with my night. The following evening, Devin and I sat on my apartment balcony drinking beer while the city lights flickered below us. "You ever regret it?" he asked carefully. I thought about Marcus for a long moment. About the party. The laughter. The empty apartment afterward. The begging. The blame. The final apology. Then I shook my head. No. Devin nodded slowly. Some people still think you went too far. They're allowed to think that. You really don't feel guilty? I looked out over the street below. I didn't scream at him. I didn't publicly humiliate him. I didn't ruin his reputation. I paused. I just stopped funding a life where I wasn't respected. Devin smiled slightly into his beer bottle. That's a pretty reasonable boundary. The breeze moved softly through the balcony plants beside us. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then I said quietly, "The hardest part wasn't leaving." What was? Accepting that the person I loved probably never existed the way I imagined. That truth hurt more than the breakup itself. Because losing someone is painful. But realizing you loved a version of them they only performed for you, that changes something deep inside you. Still, I survived it. And eventually, life became good again. Not dramatic. Not exciting. Just stable. Peaceful mornings. Friends who showed up consistently. Bills paid without resentment attached. Love for myself returning slowly, piece by piece. Marcus once said he stayed with me because the financial arrangement was convenient. What he never understood was this. People don't leave because they hear one cruel sentence. They leave because that sentence confirms every quiet hurt they've been trying to ignore. In the end, Marcus lost an apartment. But I lost an illusion. And honestly, I think I got the better deal.